How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another Dead by Daylight video. In this one we're going to be doing something a little bit different once again. I'm going to be giving you 20 killer tips for new players of the game, or for those who are at least new to playing killer. For all you veterans out there, do not worry, there are going to be 2 future videos covering intermediate and advanced killer tips in the future, but for now it is back to the basics. Most of these tips are going to be for killers who have little understanding and want to know how to start improving, but none of these tips are going to be specific to any killer. I'll be doing more beginner guides and such for killers soon in the future, so stay tuned for those, but for now it is going to be basic tips for basic killers. Now we're going to be going through these as quickly as possible, but I've rambled on long enough. Here are 20 beginner tips for Dead by Daylight killers. Tip number 1 is when starting a game, survivors are going to spawn far away from you, so head to the areas of the map that are furthest away, and more times than not you will either find somebody or at least find somebody on your way. Number 2 is about the basement. Now if you can, always try and hook survivors in the basement, as this will result in more pressure and survivors will have to be much more careful when you're rescuing. But don't lose the survivors you're carrying if you're trying to really make it towards the basement. A hook is better than no hook, of course. Now tip number 3 is camping isn't for the most part going to get you anything in the game unless the generators have been completed or you're already in the end game collapse. All you're going to do is waste time and not apply any pressure, as if the survivors know you're camping they can just smash through gens whilst you stood there waiting. So get used to hooking and trying to get into another chase or pressure gens straight afterwards. Now number 4 is to not spend all of your blood points in one killer. When ranking up your killers you want to try and unlock as many teachable perks as you can. Teachables, for those of you who don't know, are 3 perks that are bound to one specific killer and that you have to unlock the orange versions of these perks on level 30, 35 and 40 in the blood web to unlock them for other killers to use. Now having a main and wanting to use them is absolutely fine, but try to level every killer to level 40 at the minimum so you can unlock a bunch of new perks that will help you playing the killer that you want to play. Now tip number 5 is knowing when to let go of the chase. Knowing when and where to stop chasing someone is so crucial to your pressure. If a survivor has been looping you for a minute or 2 without you being able to really hit them, try to maybe move on to a different survivor so that you don't lose pressure and lose gens because you're focused on one survivor who can run you well for too long. With number 6, there are currently 25 killers in Dead by Daylight and every killer's power does something a little bit different. However, I would say there are 4 distinct categories of killer types that you can play in Dead by Daylight. So get used to playing different categories in killers so that you have an array to choose from depending on what you want most from a killer. The 4 categories are Stealth, which includes the Shape, the Ghostface, the Wraith and the Pig. These killers are fantastic at keeping quiet and being hard to see so you can sneak up and hit survivors easier. You have your ranged killers, which are the Huntress, the Deathslinger, the Executioner, the Clown, the Trickster, the Plague and the Nemesis. All of these killers in some way have a ranged attack that you have to aim with. Some are pretty simple to understand like the Huntress and the Trickster, but they can get pretty intense with some killers needing a little bit of knowledge to really understand their power, like the Plague or the Executioner. You also have what I call the aggressive killers, such as the Hillbilly, the Oni, the Blight, the Twins, the Legion, the Cannibal, the Doctor and the Spirit. These killers have powers that are incredibly aggressive and you need to find survivors as soon as possible and be in the chase as many times as possible to get the most out of these guys. Also, some of these killers have incredible map pressure as a result to increase speed in one way or another. And finally we have the traps and teleport killers, which include the Trapper, surprisingly, the Nurse, the Hag, the Nightmare, the Demogorgon and the Cenobite. These killers revolve around either having to place traps around the map to catch or hinder survivors, or the ability to teleport across the map in one way or another. With these killers you have to be a little bit more strategic, but the payoff is wonderful. Alright, moving on to tip number 7, scratch marks are the single most important tool for killers to find survivors, so make sure you are keeping and following the scratch marks as best as you can. There are also some perks to help with scratch marks if this is something that you do struggle with. Tip number 8 is to break pallets. Survivors can use pallets on the map to slow down the killer, whether that be to have to make them go around it, or if they're close enough to get stunned by them. More times than not you are going to want to break these pallets when they are thrown, as if you leave them up it's going to be a lot easier for the survivor to loop you. Now this isn't the case with every pallet, as some are very unsafe for survivors to use, but you'll be able to know which are which after a while of playing. Now, every killer has a unique collection of add-ons that can modify and improve their power in several ways, sometimes even hinder it. However, if you have just started playing a particular killer, I wouldn't use any add-ons for a little bit so that you can get used to them as default, meaning that if you can't run these certain add-ons that you've gotten used to later, your gameplay and your skill won't be affected as you already know how the killer works at a minimum level. Number 10 is that you have two different forms of attacking with your M1. If you lightly click the basic attack, it will give you a short but very fast swing, and holding it down will perform a longer lunge that takes obviously a little bit longer but covers so much more ground. So try to get used to a variety of both. Short swings if they're directly in front of you, and long swings for trying to get hits over vaults and around loops. Now, number 11 is going to be to actually play Survivor as well to help you as a killer. Understanding how Survivor's mindset work in difference to a killer's is crucial, as with a fairly basic understanding of a Survivor, you should be able to apply the same information to the killer games and think, if I was this Survivor that I'm chasing, what would I do? That kind of mindset can really help your killer games. Number 12 is going to be to pay attention to notifications. If a survivor gets rescued off the hook, fails a skill check, or performs a rushed action, the location will be shown to you and a noise notification will be given as well. Pay attention to these as they are free information to know where survivors are and what they are doing. Number 13 is that once all generators have been completed, the objectives for the survivors is to find the exit gates and to escape the map. There are 2 exit gates on the game by default, and both require a little bit of time to get them open. So once all the generators have been completed, you'll need to start pressuring the gates so that you can try to stop any fleeing survivors. And remember that both exit gate locations are shown to you when 5 gens have been completed. The red lights above also tell you if they've been worked on. Now, number 14 is going to be some Dead by Daylight terms that you might hear and might not understand. So I'm just going to quickly take you through a couple of the most popular so that if they ever pop up, you know exactly what they're talking about. Slugging. So slugging is where you down a survivor and leave them on the floor in the dying state instead of hooking them or killing them or anything like that. You just leave them there and let them slither around the map. Camping is staying close to a hook survivor once they've been hooked. Instead of going off and finding another chase or pressuring gens, you stay extremely close to the survivor. And face camping is when you're directly in front of the hook survivor. Not really the best, but forgivable in some situations, like endgame collapse. NOED is an abbreviation of the perk No One Escapes Death, and is the perk that lets you insta-down survivors with an M1 hit once all 5 generators have been completed, and if the totem is still lit. Now, tunneling is where you go for one survivor and one survivor only. Instead of spreading your hooks and kills, if you tunnel, that means you go after a survivor that has been unhooked. You will immediately start chasing them again without giving them a moment to get back on their feet. A lot of these kind of are a bit frowned upon, but for some aspects, all of them are completely valid levels of play. You shouldn't have to worry about anything like this at low level play. Just do your best, and I'm absolutely sure that you'll be absolutely fine. Now, number 15, this revolves around the new Boon Totem. The new Survivor Edition Michaela brings a new type of perk, similar to hexes for killers, called Boon Totems. Survivors can apply boon perks to dull totems that grant the team benefits within its radius, and the new perks are quite strong. So if you hear this noise, or see a blue totem, snuff it out when you can to rid survivors of these extra perks. Just also keep in mind that these can be reapplied indefinitely. Tip number 16 is going to be to keep your ears out for generators, as you can hear when survivors are working on them and if they've had any progress made. After a while, you should be able to determine A, if a generator has been worked on, and B, how far that generator actually could be along in its repair process. This will be really important for you to keep on top of generators by being able to just simply hear out which ones you need to pressure instead of having to go have a look at it. So try to get used to the sounds of the generators so you know exactly what to look out for and where to apply your pressure. Now, number 17 is going to be something not really in-game, but more of a general mindset. There will eventually be a stage when you get to a level where you cannot beat survivors consistently, and most times than not, this will be because the perks that they bring are just simply better than the ones that you've got. With me saying you want to unlock all the teachables as soon as possible, this is why. You may become a great killer, but sometimes not having the right tools to back your playstyle can result in survivors getting the edge. This is completely normal and it is fine. DBD is a very grindy game, and this is where it hurts the most, but keep grinding the blood points, unlock other teachables, kills so that you have a full array, and eventually you will get the upper hand on them. So don't lose hope or like motivation or give up because kill has been a little bit tricky. It will get easier, you just have to apply the right points in the right places, so keep your chin up. Tip number 18 is to try and find the weak link of the team. More often than not, there will be at least one survivor on the team who doesn't play as well as the rest. Try to find and identify this person so that you can get easy pressure on them, and if played right, you can actually get them out the game without losing too many gens, but without tunneling them. When you do this, the game will become a 3v1 and it makes it so much harder for survivors to make good pressure. So instead of chasing a survivor who can loop you well, find the weakling that can, and make the game harder for everybody by getting them out. Now, tip number 19 is to try and learn and understand survivor perks so that you know how to work around them as killer. Survivors have some incredible perks in their roster to make life difficult for the killer, such as sprint burst, borrow time, decisive strike, all of stuff like that. However, if you start to understand which perks you're likely to expect in the game, and you know how you can work around them, whether it being waiting the extra second for a dead hard to pass, or being able to cut a chase short because survivors had to take a tile differently, it really helps your understanding as killer if you know what the survivors could have in their arsenal. And the last tip is to not waste time in dead zones. I see far too many new killers searching the corners and edges of every map, every locker, and generally searching places with no gens around them. You want to try and keep the pressure up by being where the survivors need to be. If you're guarding 3 generators that are close together, the survivors will eventually have to come to you. So don't worry about looking behind every single rock and tree. Make sure you're pressuring hooks and gens and keeping your eyes out for where survivors are coming from and what they're doing. And always try to be in high traffic areas where survivors are most likely to at least run through from time to time. But yeah, that's about it, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'm actually really enjoying making more educational DBD videos lately. So if this is something that you want more of, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more helpful videos like this, as I want to make more, and the more support you guys show, the more I'll be inclined to do it. But yeah, that's it. I've rambled on for far too long. I hope this has helped, and I'll see you all in my next video. Take care. Bye-bye for now.